this is it, the grand finale. The last stop on our haunted tour of Louisiana before I pack my bags, sprinkle a little salt around my suitcase for protection, and politely tell the ghosts, y'all stay blessed and far away from me. Now, before we dive into the creepy, crawly, shadowy tales of this final episode, I just gotta say, Louisiana has officially scared me straight. I've seen more spirits down here than at a Bourbon Street bar on Mardi Gras. Some whispered my name, another just stood there in the corner like he was mad LSU lost to Alabama. And honestly, I get it. I'd haunt people too if my team lost like that. But here's the thing. This state is beautiful, spooky, mysterious, and full of stories that make you want to sleep with the lights on and your grandma's Bible under your pillow. We've been through haunted mansions, cursed cemeteries, ghost-infested hotels, and a few places that even Google Maps said, "You sure about this?" Now, I know you've been enjoying this haunted road trip as much as I have. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing? Hit that button, or I swear, I will hire a voodoo priest to stand outside your window and chant until your dog starts speaking in tongues. Don't test me. For real though, subscribing helps me keep bringing you all the creepy content you love. Plus, it's free, unlike therapy after visiting some of these places. So grab your ghost hunting gear one last time, say a little prayer, and let's finish strong with the final round of Louisiana's most haunted places. Part 5. Let's go! Okay, this one's a little different from my usual ghost story. We're not talking about haunted hospitals or voodoo curses this time. Nope. We're diving straight into the Fang's first world of Louisiana's vampire problem. And yes, I said problem. Because when it comes to vampires, Louisiana isn't just a state, it's a whole vibe. I mean, let's be honest. If any place was gonna have a vampire infestation, it was either gonna be Transylvania or New Orleans. And let's not forget, True Blood was based in Louisiana for a reason. I don't know what was more shocking in that show, the vampires or the amount of southern accents that changed mid-season. Let's start with one of the oldest stories, the Casket Girls. These ladies were shipped over from France in the 1700s to help populate the colony. Sounds sweet, right? A little matchmaking from across the sea. But legend has it they brought more than just perfume and hope. They may have smuggled vampires in their luggage. People started dying mysteriously. The girls looked a little too pale and quiet, and suddenly everyone was looking sideways at their coffin-shaped trunks. Supposedly, the nuns at the Ursuline convent sealed up the attic where the girls stayed using 800 silver screws blessed by the Pope. That's right, not just any silver screws, holy silver screws. I don't know where you order that from, but Amazon Prime definitely doesn't carry it. Then there were the Carter brothers. In the 1930s, these two fine gentlemen were arrested after a girl escaped their apartment covered in blood, claiming she'd been held hostage. Police broke in and found multiple victims tied to chairs, drained of blood, and several dead bodies. When the brothers were finally caught and executed, their bodies were placed in a tomb. Years later, that tomb was mysteriously found empty. And you know what that means. Either vampire resurrection or some very determined grave robbers with a taste for the dramatic. But vampires in Louisiana don't always wear black capes and dramatic eyeliner. Sometimes they come with fur and a Cajun accent. Enter the Rougarou, a swamp monster that's part werewolf, part vampire, and all kinds of creepy. Some say if you break Lent 7 years in a row, you'll turn into one. Others say it's just a creature that needs to suck blood to survive. Either way, if you hear growling in the bayou and something's asking if you've got any B negative, maybe it's time to rethink that swamp tour. Modern Louisiana vampires owe a lot to pop culture. Anne Rice's vampire novels made New Orleans ground zero for brooding, romantic bloodsuckers. Her stories painted the city with such gothic charm that readers around the world started booking trips just to see the cemeteries and Garden District homes where fictional vampires once lurked. And then came True Blood, that wild, weird, wonderful HBO fever dream where vampires came out of the coffin and started sipping synthetic blood like it was a hot new energy drink. Sure, it was filmed in Baton Rouge, but let's be real. Every corner of Louisiana claimed a piece of it. Though, fun fact, when actual New Orleans vampires were asked about True Blood, they hadn't even watched it. Too busy doing real vampire stuff, apparently, like feeding and grocery shopping. That's right, Louisiana has real-life vampires. And no, they don't burst into flames at sunrise or sparkle in the daylight. These are people, yes, actual people, who identify as vampires. Some drink small amounts of blood from willing donors. Others claim to absorb energy through touch, conversation, or just hanging out. It's not just a fad either. There's an entire vampire community in New Orleans. They host charity drives, feed the homeless, and throw vampire balls that are more elegant than most weddings. Honestly, the only scary part is the dress code. Consent and safety are huge in the vampire community. Blood isn't just passed around like gum at church. It's done carefully, with sterilization and medical knowledge. One vampire even explained that they use a sterilized lancet and only take a drop or two. Think of it like a weirdly intimate blood drive, minus the orange juice and awkward small talk. Most vampires say feeding helps with fatigue and feeling drained. Ironically, not in the way you'd expect. Public reaction is a mix of fascination and confusion. A lot of these folks keep their identities private. They have jobs, families, and most of them don't wear fangs outside the house. They're not looking to recruit or scare anyone. They just want to live their truth, ideally without being asked if they sleep in a coffin or have ever dated Dracula. Most are extremely chill, educated, and fully aware that people find this odd. But hey, in a world full of weird hobbies, sipping a few drops of blood with your soulmate isn't the strangest thing we've heard. And now for the mysterious twist. A Netflix documentary was actually in the works about vampires in Louisiana. It started filming with the goal of showing the real-life vampire community, their culture, their rituals, and maybe even their drama. But then, poof, it vanished, like ghosted harder than a Tinder date after midnight. No official reason was ever given. Some say it was legal trouble. Others think the vampire community pulled back out of fear of being misrepresented. Whatever happened, the project was quietly canceled, leaving behind more questions than answers. So whether you believe in vampires, think they're just misunderstood night owls with a taste for red, or you're now Googling how to become one, Louisiana remains one of the most haunted, fanged, and delightfully weird places in the country. Just remember, if someone at a New Orleans bar offers you a Bloody Mary at midnight, double-check what's in it. In the heart of Shreveport, Louisiana, there's a mansion so charming it could make a ghost want to stick around forever. And apparently, one did. The Logan Mansion, built in 1897, is a Queen Anne-style beauty with stained glass windows, intricate woodwork, and a porch just begging for sweet tea and southern gossip. It was originally built by Lafayette Logan, a lumber baron and beer distributor, which makes sense because this house is both sturdy and fancy, kind of like a southern grandma in heels. Lafayette and his wife Lavinia lived in the home until their deaths in the early 1900s. Sadly, they never had children, but the house itself lived quite the dramatic life. After the Logans were gone, the mansion bounced around between being a boarding house, a church, and even a radio station. You know a house has been through it when it's hosted sermons, tenants, and DJ sets. Eventually, it fell into disrepair, because even ghosts don't want to haunt peeling wallpaper. Fast forward to the early 2000s, when the house got some new owners who lovingly restored it to its former glory. They even opened it for tours, parties, and murder mystery nights, because nothing says hospitality like fake crime in a possibly haunted home. The mansion even opened its attic to visitors, and that's important, because that's where the legend really comes to life. The ghost story centers around a young girl named Theodora. Legend has it she was either a friend of the Logan family or the daughter of a schoolteacher boarding in the house. One tragic day she fell, or some say jumped, from the attic window and died. Since then, the attic has been her stomping ground. If ghosts had feet, folks say they still hear her giggling up there, playing games, and being the kind of mischievous spirit that hides your car keys right when you're already late. Visitors and owners alike have reported eerie experiences. Doors slam on their own, lights flicker without cause, and voices, especially that of a little girl, have been caught on tape. One recording even captured her whispering, "You can't go up there," which, let's be honest, is exactly what would make someone want to go up there. Ghost logic, y'all. She's not the angry throw stuff at you kind of ghost, though. She's more like Casper with attitude. Owners say she hides things, locks doors when she's moody, and plays pranks that would land a real kid in time out. Contractors once found tools missing and later discovered them tucked away in strange spots, as if Theodora was trying to build her own dollhouse or just messing with them for sport. The Logan Mansion has become a local celebrity in the ghost world. Halloween tours, candlelit walkthroughs, and paranormal investigations have all highlighted this southern spookfest. People come from all over to see the grand staircase, the lavish rooms, and, if they're lucky, the flicker of a child-sized shadow darting past the attic window. Let's just say you won't be the only one trying to peek behind the curtains. Today, the Logan Mansion is still standing tall, welcoming ghost hunters, history buffs, and the occasional nervous Airbnb guest. Whether you come for the architecture or the afterlife, one thing's for sure. Theodora might not be able to go up there anymore, but she'll make sure you remember that she once did, probably by hiding your toothbrush. Alice Penny Taylor's story begins way back in 1859, when she passed away at just 19 years old in the quiet little town of Zachary, Louisiana. Her family, not one for subtlety, buried her in the only above-ground crypt in the local cemetery. Basically, the VIP suite of eternal rest. While everyone else was lying low, literally, Alice was posted up in a tomb that stuck out like a sore, spooky thumb. Naturally, that unique tomb caught the attention of everyone in town and started planting seeds for some ghostly gossip. In a place where being different is often a fast track to becoming local legend, Alice's raised tomb became the center of attention. While no one really knew much about her life, the fact that her grave was towering above the others gave her an air of mystery. Folks started whispering, maybe she was a witch, maybe she made a deal with the devil, or maybe she just had rich parents with questionable taste in cemetery real estate. Either way, when something looks out of place in the bayou, people assume it's cursed or at least worth telling stories about. As time passed, kids began daring each other to sit on Alice's tomb at night. In Zachary, that's pretty much the rite of passage, right after learning how to skin a catfish. Then one day, the creepy got real. The marble slab covering her tomb was found pushed aside, and Alice's coffin was wide open with her bones just lying there like, "Hey y'all, did you miss me?" Naturally, the cemetery workers freaked out, fixed it up, and then it happened again and again. The grave seemed to open itself as if Alice had unfinished business or a very faulty crypt seal. With all the weirdness piling up, the townspeople decided that sweet little Alice might have actually been a full-on witch. Never mind that she was just a teenager when she died. Logic takes a back seat when a tomb opens itself like it's clocking in for a night shift. It didn't help that no one else had a fancy mausoleum, making her grave feel like the perfect spot for some spooky supernatural activity. Before long, folks were swapping tales about her casting spells from the other side and walking the cemetery in the moonlight, probably wondering who kept moving her furniture. The ghost stories picked up steam. People claimed they saw a pale figure drifting among the tombstones. Cold spots, strange noises, and flickering lights were all blamed on Alice. Ghost hunters and YouTube explorers came sniffing around with their gadgets, trying to catch a glimpse of the so-called Witch of Zachary. Of course, most of them ended up running from raccoons, but that didn't stop the legend from growing like Spanish moss in the summer. Eventually, all the grave tampering got so bad that the town had to call in the experts. A forensic team came in, led by one of the top bone specialists in the state. They treated the site like a crime scene, collected Alice's remains, studied them, and respectfully returned them to her tomb, this time with a whole lot more concrete involved. No more Houdini-style disappearing acts. The town collectively agreed that whether or not Alice was a witch, she deserved to rest in peace and not be treated like a haunted house prop. Even today, her grave is still a local attraction. Some folks claim if you knock 3 times or leave a trinket, she'll grant you a wish or curse you, depending on her mood. Teenagers still sneak into the cemetery, armed with cell phones and way too much confidence, hoping to catch something spooky. A few leave flowers, a few leave snacks. One guy reportedly left a can of Monster Energy, just in case she was tired of haunting people on an empty stomach. Alice may have died young, but she's managed to outlive generations through whispers, dares, and late-night ghost stories. Whether she was just a girl with a fancy tomb or something a little more supernatural, Alice has made her mark on Zachary forever. One thing's for sure, nobody forgets the girl in the above-ground crypt. And if you listen closely at night, you just might hear her laughing from beyond, probably at all the people still trying to sit on her grave. Alley Plantation in Louisiana may look like a peaceful postcard during the day with its stately columns and grand row of ancient oaks. But after sunset, it's more like a haunted house on its 3rd cup of ghostly espresso. This place has seen more drama than a soap opera marathon, and some of its residents apparently missed the memo about moving on. Sure, it starred in Interview with a Vampire, but forget the Hollywood vampires. The real spooks here are homegrown, old school, and full of flair. Back in the early 1800s, Oak Alley was originally called Bon Séjour, which is French for good stay. Ironically, some of its guests took that way too literally. The estate was built by Jacques Telesphore Roman, a sugar planter with big dreams and an even bigger house. By 1839, he had completed the mansion, featuring a symmetrical line of 28 oak trees that looked like they were planted by an interior designer with OCD. But all the luxury in the world couldn't keep death and debt away. Jacques died of tuberculosis, and the Civil War basically turned the family's finances into ghost dust. The Roman family sold the property in 1866, but some say a few spectral house guests never packed their bags. Oak Alley had its fair share of heartbreak, and apparently heartbreak is a ghost's favorite fuel. One of the plantation's more dramatic spirits is thought to be Louise Roman, Jacques' daughter. Poor Louise had a rough time in the dating scene. Her drunken fiancé caused a scandal. She fled up the stairs, tripped on her hoop skirt, and injured her leg so badly it had to be amputated. That was enough to make her swear off men forever and join a convent. But she couldn't quit Oak Alley. People still report seeing a woman in mourning clothes pacing the upstairs hallway and even riding a phantom horse beneath the oaks. If that's not ghostly girl boss energy, what is? Then there's Mrs. Josephine Stewart, the last real-life mistress of the house, who apparently never left her post. Even though she died in the 1970s, staff have seen her ghostly figure glaring out the upstairs windows like she's still judging their cleaning job. One night, after locking up, workers noticed a glowing lamp in a window that should have been dark. When they looked up, there she was. Shadowy figure, serious vibes, and a stare that said, "Don't you dare touch my antique furniture." Then the light clicked off. Classic ghost move. Phantom horses are another staple around Oak Alley. People often hear the sound of hooves approaching, like a ghostly Uber, but no carriage ever arrives. Some even claim they've seen a Confederate soldier on horseback galloping toward the house, only to disappear into the mist like he forgot his lines in a Civil War reenactment. And if that weren't enough, there are reports of random crying echoing through the empty halls. Maybe it's a ghost baby. Maybe it's a ghost who stubbed his toe. Either way, not the lullaby anyone asked for. But the ghosts here aren't all doom and gloom. They like to mess around too. Rocking chairs will start rocking in perfect sync, like the ghosts are having a seance jam session. Sometimes dust will fly up in empty rooms like someone's ghost mopping in a hurry. And there's even been a report of a candlestick flying across the dining room, as if a ghost was reenacting Beauty and the Beast but skipped the rehearsal. One photo even captured a mannequin with a ghostly human head on it, which is either a prank from the other side or a spirit trying out a new hairdo. With its long history, tragic tales, and flamboyant ghostly performances, Oak Alley is considered one of the most haunted spots in the state. The spirits here don't just moan and rattle chains, they host full-blown paranormal dinner theater. From a one-legged lady on horseback to a strict ghost granny and a ghost soldier on eternal night patrol, Oak Alley is basically Louisiana's supernatural version of the Real Housewives. And if you're quiet enough, you might hear them laughing, crying, or just gossiping in French as they haunt their way through the afterlife. In the heart of Cajun country lies a little graveyard with a big personality, Miller Cemetery in Eunice, Louisiana. Now on paper, it's just an old family cemetery off a gravel road with a tall crucifix and a gate that whispers, "Don't even think about it." But if you ask the locals, especially the ones who've made the mistake of visiting after dark, you'll hear something else entirely. Tales of a headless ghost who wanders the tombs like he misplaced his hat. It's spooky, strange, and just the right amount of ridiculous. The cemetery itself is one of the oldest in the area, dating back to the late 1800s. It started as a private burial ground for the Miller family, who were kind of a big deal back then. And as time passed, the extended family, and half the town apparently, ended up buried there. Names like Fruge, Fontenot, and Chaumont pop up all over the place, like a roll call for a Cajun family reunion where everyone brought gumbo and left a tombstone. It's a peaceful place, with Spanish moss hanging low, birds chirping, and that weird quiet you only find where the living take a permanent nap. If you wander around during the day, it feels like a trip through local history. Graves from the 1880s sit right next to ones from 2020. You've got above-ground tombs, old-school headstones, and some worn-down markers that look like they've seen better centuries. The towering crucifix at the front says, "Catholic Roots," but a few Protestants made it in too, because even in the afterlife, everyone's got to get along. It's a respectable final resting place until the sun goes down. That's when things start to get weird. The star of the spooky show is the infamous headless ghost. The story goes that this poor guy doesn't have a head, not because it was chopped off, but because his grave photo was so damaged and weather-worn, nobody remembers what he looked like. So now he wanders around in eternal confusion, like a ghostly version of someone lost in Walmart without their reading glasses. Legend has it, his name was Faustin Fruge, and while he lived a very normal life and died peacefully, his photo has been scratched, burned, and basically erased, leaving him ghosting his own identity. Talk about an existential crisis. Of course, it wouldn't be a Louisiana ghost story without a few mechanical issues. People who visit at night say their cars suddenly stall near the cemetery, as if the ghost is out there going, "Nope, y'all staying for story time." One paranormal group had their engine die right at the gates. Others have felt cold hands on their shoulders, heard strange whispers, or seen fog roll in like it was summoned just to up the creep factor. Some even swear they caught ghostly laughter on tape. Whether that was a ghost or just a raccoon with a sense of humor, no one really knows. And like all good ghost tales, this one got a few spicy upgrades over the years. Somewhere along the way, people started whispering about satanic rituals happening in the cemetery. They claimed folks found upside-down crosses and signs of dark magic. Cue the dramatic music. Of course, anyone actually familiar with the cemetery will tell you it's just a bunch of Catholic grandparents buried out there, not devil-worshipping cult members. But hey, if you're gonna tell a ghost story, you might as well toss in a little voodoo for flair, right? Then there's the legend of the old bridge. Some say it used to lead into the cemetery, and that folks once jumped off it in sorrow, adding more ghosts to the roster. Supposedly, the bridge burned down decades ago, and the spirits of the lost linger, confused, just like our headless friend. Now, whether that actually happened or someone just watched too many horror movies is up for debate. A man who lives next door swears there's nothing haunted about the place, unless you count the wildlife. But that's just what the ghosts want him to think. These days, Miller Cemetery is the kind of place that shows up on every most haunted list in Louisiana. It's earned a spot in local legend, with kids daring each other to visit and ghost hunters hoping for a glimpse of the faceless figure. It's spooky, it's silly, and it's exactly what you'd expect from a haunted Cajun cemetery. So if you ever find yourself on that lonely road outside Eunice, just remember, bring a flashlight, keep your engine running, and for the love of all that's holy, don't lose your head. One ghost out there is already looking for his. Imagine you're strolling into Jackson Square, heart of the French Quarter, where the air smells like powdered sugar. The buildings look like they time-traveled from the 1700s, and every third person claims they've seen a ghost. It started life as the Place d'Armes, back when the French were trying to turn swamp into civilization. Then came the Spanish, who added their own flair and fireproofing because the place burned down twice. And eventually Andrew Jackson won a battle nearby and got himself a statue in the middle of it. So now we have Jackson Square. Equal parts postcard perfect plaza and paranormal playground. It's not just haunted, it's gorgeous. Picture a Parisian park, but swap the croissants for beignets and the mimes for tarot card readers. The buildings surrounding it are architectural showstoppers, from the iron-laced Pontalba apartments that sandwich the square to the majestic St. Louis Cathedral that looks like Cinderella's castle got baptized. You'll also see the Cabildo and the Presbytere, two twin-like museum buildings that were once colonial government and church offices. Now they just collect ghosts and tourists. By day, Jackson Square is like a circus with better food. Artists line the fences, jazz musicians serenade the benches, and street performers juggle for coins while tourists try to dodge flocks of pigeons with attitude. Café du Monde across the street keeps everyone sugared up with beignets and chicory coffee, ensuring the energy stays chaotic from sunup to midnight. But don't let all that powdered sugar fool you. Once the sun goes down, this place gets spooky real fast. You see, Jackson Square was once the stage for public executions. Criminals, pirates, and unlucky revolutionaries met their end right where the artists now sell watercolor portraits. They say the echoes of old screams still float on the breeze. So, if you're walking through the square late at night and hear whispering in the oaks, don't panic. It's probably just a colonial ghost giving you side-eye for wearing flip-flops to a haunted battlefield. Then there's Muriels restaurant on the corner. Fancy food, warm lighting, and, oh yeah, a ghost named Pierre who haunts the place because he lost it in a card game and couldn't handle the L. Pierre decided to shuffle off this mortal coil in what's now the Seance Lounge. And to this day, waiters leave a table set for him, complete with bread and wine. He's been known to float around like a glowing jellyfish, rearranging cutlery and tossing glasses when he's feeling dramatic. Honestly, he sounds like he'd be a blast at brunch. The St. Louis Cathedral has its own live-in ghost, a Spanish priest named Père Antoine. He passed away in the 1800s but apparently missed the memo because people still claim to see him lighting candles or quietly humming hymns during midnight mass. Sometimes he's seen in the pews, sometimes on the altar, and sometimes just vibing in the alley beside the church like a ghostly security guard. The man just really loved his job, okay? And then there's Pirates Alley. It's the skinny street between the cathedral and the Cabildo, and rumor has it, it was a favorite execution site for captured pirates. They say some of those salty souls still linger, especially near the old jailhouse and the rum-soaked corners of the alley. Stay long enough, and you might feel a cold touch on your back. Or maybe they're just trying to bum a drink. So if you're out for a romantic moonlit stroll in Jackson Square and suddenly feel like someone's watching you, don't worry. It's probably just a 200-year-old ghost wondering why you're taking selfies with his favorite guillotine spot. This square has seen it all: glory, death, jazz, gumbo, and things that go bump in the night. But in New Orleans, even the ghosts have manners and a sweet tooth. In the heart of the French Quarter, tucked away on Ursulines Avenue, stands a hotel that doesn't just embrace its creepy reputation, it practically hands you a ghost-shaped welcome mint when you walk in. Built in 1829, this charmingly sinister place has leaned so hard into its haunted reputation that even the walls creak with dramatic flair. They say almost a dozen murders have happened on the property over the past 2 centuries. Whether that's true or just part of the marketing strategy, one thing's for sure: this hotel is doing everything short of handing out complimentary Ouija boards to sell the vibe. The hotel started out as a classic early 19th century townhouse, the kind you'd expect to see in one of those old-timey paintings. Except now it comes with central air and at least one possibly resentful ghost. The land might have once belonged to the Ursuline nuns, who were known for their prayers, their good deeds, and apparently not for exorcisms. One of the more well-known owners of the house was a woman named May, and when she died in the building, legend has it she wasn't ready to leave. Guests now stay in her old quarters, which still bear her name, and report all kinds of eerie shenanigans, like flickering lights, cold spots, and that unmistakable feeling of being watched while brushing your teeth. Now let's talk about the hotel's biggest claim to fame: the Axeman of New Orleans. Back in 1918 and 1919, this real-life horror story played out across the city, with a serial killer breaking into homes and attacking people with axes. He mostly targeted Italian grocers because apparently even killers had oddly specific beefs back then. The killer was never caught, but he did leave behind one of the creepiest calling cards in true crime history: a newspaper letter saying he'd spare anyone who played jazz at midnight. That night, New Orleans became one giant dance party, because when a killer tells you to jazz or die, you jazz like your life depends on it. According to the hotel staff, the Axeman didn't just haunt the city. He might have actually lived right there in the back of the building. There's a local tale that he was a handyman who rented one of the slave quarter rooms out back, and that's where he plotted his crimes between coffee breaks and casual axe sharpening. Some guests even claim they stayed in the very room where he hid out. Of course, historians haven't found any proof of this, but when you've got a bloody axe on display in your lobby, you don't need footnotes. That axe, by the way, was allegedly discovered during a renovation. Whether it belonged to the Axeman or someone with poor home improvement skills, no one knows, but it makes for a killer photo op. The axe is now proudly mounted in a display case in the lobby, and let's just say it doesn't exactly scream souvenir shop. The current owners treat it like a relic from a horror museum, encouraging guests to take a long, thoughtful stare and maybe question their life choices. Some paranormal investigators have come in with fancy ghost hunting gear and claimed there's serious energy radiating from the corner where it was found. Guests often say the patio gives them the chills, though that might just be the humidity and regret after a night on Bourbon Street. As for Mamie, the ghostly innkeeper, she seems to have kept her managerial duties into the afterlife. Guests staying in her former room say she still tries to keep things in order by knocking things over, turning off lights, and generally giving off that "do I know you" energy from the shadows. Some people have even packed up and left in the middle of the night after hearing whispers and footsteps that didn't belong to anyone living. Others swear she's a friendly presence, like a grandmotherly ghost who just wants you to stop leaving your towels on the floor. Of course, she's not the only one reportedly making rounds. Guests often report strange sounds, phantom footsteps, and the occasional tug at their sheets, presumably from ghosts with boundary issues. One woman swore her sheets were pulled down in the middle of the night, and when she looked over, her husband was still snoring like nothing happened. Meanwhile, lights in the hallway flicker even when no one's there, doors open just a smidge on their own, And if you hear a bark in the courtyard, don't worry, there's no dog. At least, not a living one. A few skeptics have tried to rain on the paranormal parade, pointing out that there's no real evidence linking the Axeman to this particular spot. But let's be honest, ghost stories are rarely about hard facts. They're about ambiance, weird vibes, and maybe that moment at 2 a.m. when your shampoo bottle inexplicably flies off the shelf. And this hotel, it has ambiance in spades. Whether it's the old brick walls, the flickering lanterns, or that jazz tune you think you hear in the distance, the place practically begs you to believe in something spooky. Even those who didn't have a direct encounter still leave feeling like they've stayed somewhere special. Sure, maybe they didn't see a ghost, but they felt something. Maybe it was the weight of history. Maybe it was Mamie checking in on them. Or maybe it was the 5th hurricane cocktail from the night before finally kicking in. Either way, most guests agree. You don't forget your stay at the haunted hotel. So, if you're ever wandering through New Orleans with a taste for jazz, history, and the slight possibility of a ghost sitting at the edge of your bed, the haunted hotel on Ursulines is waiting. Just don't forget to play a little jazz, just in case. In the heart of New Orleans' French Quarter stands a building so old and storied, it practically deserves its own soap opera. It all began in the early 1700s when a French-Canadian named Claude Trepanier built a little cottage near what we now call Jackson Square. Fast forward a few years, and the place got a serious upgrade. Ballroom, music room, imported Parisian silver, the whole "I'm richer than you" starter pack. After a few fires, because it's New Orleans, and we can't have nice things without a little drama, a man named Pierre-Antoine Lepardie-Jourdain got his hands on the property and rebuilt it once again, turning it into a place he loved more than life itself. Literally. Pierre loved his house so much that when he lost it in a poker game, yes, a poker game, he couldn't handle the heartbreak. Rather than move out and crash at his cousin's place, he went upstairs and tragically took his own life. They say it happened right where Muriels' Seance Lounge now sits. And because New Orleans ghosts have a flair for the dramatic, Pierre never really left. Over time, the building changed hands, got some fancy renovations. And by 2001, it was transformed into Muriels Jackson Square, complete with gourmet Creole cuisine, and of course, a resident ghost who thinks he's still on the deed. Muriel's staff will tell you with a straight face, and maybe a slight side-eye, that Pierre still lingers. But he's not a chains-rattling kind of ghost. He's more of a sparkle and shove kind of guy. Guests have seen glowing orbs, heard knocks on brick walls, and even witnessed wine glasses take flight like they're auditioning for Ghostbusters, the musical. Every night, they set a table just for him. White linen, French bread, and a glass of red wine. It's part respect, part bribe. Because let's be honest, nobody wants to clean up ectoplasmic wine stains. And then there are the cold spots. You're mid-sentence, trying to explain why gumbo is better than jambalaya, and boom, goosebumps. Or you're sipping a Sazerac, and the glass just scoots itself down the bar like it's calling an Uber. Guests have heard footsteps when no one is upstairs. Lights flicker with zero electrical issues, and once, a bar glass reportedly flew across the room like it had somewhere to be. It's all very chill, though. No one's gotten scratched or possessed, yet. People have also seen a woman in white just gracefully floating around the courtyard like she's judging everyone's fashion choices. Some say she's looking for someone. Others think she's just vibing. Either way, she's polite. There's also talk of a shadowy figure who slinks around the dining room. He never orders, never tips. Classic ghost behavior. Now the Seance Lounge, that's where the magic and the wine happens. It's this plush, red velvet-lined room that looks like Moulin Rouge and a tarot deck had a baby. Muriels leans all the way into the ghostly glamour with leopard print couches, dim lighting, and the feeling that you're definitely being watched. But like, in a sexy ghost way. Paranormal groups love to host seances here, and some say they've actually communicated with old Pierre. Others just come for the ambiance and the cocktails, which is honestly just as spiritual. New Orleans, of course, is the kind of city that wants its buildings to be haunted. Ghosts are part of the culture. You've got voodoo queens, jazz funerals, and enough ghost tours to make the dead feel like celebrities. Locals don't fear the spirits, they welcome them. And Muriels has become a prime example of how New Orleans honors the dead while serving you dessert. Over the years, visitors have captured strange orbs in their photos, gotten unexplained taps on the shoulder, and even had conversations interrupted by the sound of ghostly whispers. But the moment they started setting that table for Pierre, things got way calmer. It's like the ghost version of giving a grumpy cat its own pillow. Today, Muriels is one of the most beloved and haunted restaurants in New Orleans. People come for the food, stay for the spirits, and leave wondering if that chill on the back of their neck was air conditioning or someone from 1814 saying, "Nice gumbo." Whether you believe in ghosts or not, Muriels makes you feel like you're dining in a storybook, one with killer bread pudding and a ghost who still thinks he owns the place. Well, folks, that's it. We've officially reached the end of the ghost-filled, gumbo-smelling road trip known as Louisiana's Most Haunted Places. Part 5. It's been a wild ride full of phantoms, voodoo vibes, and enough spooky stories to make a Ouija board beg for a break. From haunted hotels to cemeteries with more drama than a reality show, Louisiana did not disappoint. I gotta say, it's been an absolute pleasure visiting this great state. The spirits here are friendly, mostly, and the food. Let's just say if the ghost didn't kill me, the beignets almost did. But now it's time to pack up my holy water, recharge my EMF detector, and hit the road like a ghost escaping a seance. But here's the question: where should I go next? I've got my spooky eye on Kentucky. I hear the ghosts over there sip bourbon and whisper about horse races. Let me know in the comments if that's where I should go, or if another haunted hotspot is calling my name. Preferably not from a mirror at midnight, thank you very much. And don't forget to subscribe, unless you want one of Louisiana's ghosts to follow you home. I'm kidding. Probably. See y'all in the next haunted adventure.